Hey guys, Xlice here. With the second half of 1.1 arriving in Arknights Endfield, it's time to take a little break from our cryo friends and give a little love to the physical squad. Rossi is here to provide a unique blend of hyper-fast vulnerability stacks for our physical units, and also massive heat damage from her ult. If you're an avid physical enjoyer, she'll probably be someone you want to pick up, and she enhances those team comps while also adding her massive damage. In this video, I'll provide you exactly what you need to know: how to play, how to build, how to team, how to Rossi. Now, full disclaimer on this video. This is creator server access, and all footage shown is of P5, R5, max essence Rossi, so that's potential 5. I personally requested for just potential 0, R1 for relatability purposes, so hopefully in the future we can have expectations adjusted for the damage you can realistically achieve, but for now, due to time constraints, we gotta run with this. Now, throughout this video, if extended footage is shown, I will remind you guys on screen that Rossi is P5R5 max essence, so calibrate your expectations of damage accordingly. With that out of the way, let's break down exactly how she works. Alright, so her main ability that enables everything in her kit is her combo skill. It requires both a vulnerability stack and any arts infliction. A vulnerability stack is applied on any physical status, so lift, knockdown, crush, breach all count. Arts infliction is the standard heat, electric, cryo, or nature infliction. In combat, you will be on the lookout for enemy tooltips that have something similar to this that indicate that they have at least one stack of both. When this is met, her QTE is a special 2-hit combo. The first hit is just damage, but the second hit has a perfect timing window shown by this yellow ring that you want to make sure you get. This will consume all arts infliction stacks from the target, deal damage, apply lift, which is 1 stack, and buff Rossi with 25% crit rate and 50% crit damage for 15 seconds. If you get the perfect timing, she will apply 1 more stack of vulnerability for 2 total from this QTE, giving her access to the fastest vulnerability stacking in the game. The crit rate crit damage buff is also pretty massive. The great thing is that her QTE is on a 14-second cooldown, with the buff being 15 seconds, so theoretically she does have 100% uptime on this buff. Now, her battle skill's main use is to apply a single vulnerability stack through lift. But if the enemy already has one, it'll also add an extra wolf attack called Woven Ombrage that deals a good chunk of heat damage. Now, this extra wolf attack is the core of her kit and is enhanced by both of her passives. First talent marks enemies hit by Woven Ombrage for 25 seconds, causing them to bleed every second, and debuffs them with both fizz and heat damage taken plus 12%. Her second talent improves her ultimate's damage by adding a coordinated hit when her ult crits on a marked enemy. If that enemy is also combusted, the coordinated damage multiplier gets a 1.5x multiplier boost. Now, of course, once enemies are marked, this is the best time to send that ultimate. Her ult gives her super armor and locks her in place, dealing massive heat damage and applies heat infliction at the end. If she crits during this ability, she gets a juicy 60% crit damage boost. Under marked enemies, she'll deal this extra coordinated attack and also heals herself during this entire attack. So, basically, Rossi's goal is the following. Apply 1 stack of Vuln and Arts Infliction to trigger her QTE. The first stack of Vuln is usually her battle skill in base form. The Arts Infliction is usually going to be Heat Infliction due to the synergy with Rossi's kit, so we will use units like Akekuri or Wulfgard. Her QTE will convert all Arts Infliction on the target to 2 more stacks of vulnerability, which is 3 total. Then, we can use her battle skill again to trigger Woven Ombrage to mark enemies, debuff them with fizz and heat damage taken, and apply the 4th vulnerability stack. From here, you can consider an all-in since enemies are debuffed. You can buff with your supports and then send Rossi's ultimate for that massive heat damage nuke. At the same time, you can use your physical teammates' crush ability that consumes the 4 stacks that Rossi prepped for massive physical damage. Usually a character that does that is, for example, Endmin or Dapan. This allows her team to effectively have multiple sources of damage from herself and from the physical units for consistent DPS. Now, based off my experience playing her, her teams have super high damage ceiling, but she does take a bit more attention to detail than most comps. You have to be present for her QTE timing window and also be pretty knowledgeable on how many stacks the enemies have for optimal DPS. If this is to your fancy, you will be rewarded for consistent and high nuke damage windows for Giga Dopamine. Now, her ultimate is relatively average cost at 110 and typically needs 2 QTE cycles at 14 seconds each to cycle her ult. For talent priority, her damage comes from her ultimate and her battle skill. However, her QTE does have that crit rate and crit damage buff. Unfortunately, I can't exactly tell if this scales by level because Media Server already has her max and I can't really tell the lower levels. If for you guys leveling her, this does improve per level, make sure to get this high enough first for this max bonus. If it doesn't scale and at level 1 it gives 25-50%, then you can effectively ignore this ability. But besides that, we're going to max out her ultimate and then her skill, and then basic is used as needed. She will be your on-field DPS. Now let's take a look at her build. So attribute scalings are going to be agility and intellect. She also scales really well with crit, and most of her damage is going to be from her ultimate. Her gear set is very similar to Yvonne's because of crit scaling, but she will need the new Copium ore for the T1 variants on the armor piece and the gloves. We're gonna go with MI Security 3-piece set for the crit rate and attack boost, grabbing agility intellect for all pieces, with ultimate gain efficiency on chest, ultimate damage bonus on gloves, and then crit rate on the kits. For artificing, focus agility and crit rate first, then get the rest of the stats. For the weapon, we've only got two real options, either her signature, the Lupine Scarlet, or the Battle Pass, which is Glorious Memory, since these are the only swords that provide crit rate boost on the second line. She doesn't use guns like Yvonne, so we can't steal her weapons away from her. The crit rate boost is really important because we do want her to get as close to 100% in combat as possible to guarantee her ultimate's 60% crit damage boost. If you have it maxed out, it grants 19.5% crit rate, which is quite a bit. Now, if you don't plan to pull her signature, then I'd highly recommend investing in the Battle Pass option, as there really is nothing else that provides similar stat value. In terms of strength scaling, this is approximately what you can expect. R5 signature is 115 to 120% strength, R0 signature is 100%, R5 battle pass is 90%, and then R0 battle pass is 75 to 80%. Now a quick run through of potentials for any whales or lucky gamers out there. P1, both her battle skill and QTE are now 1.15 times stronger. The extra wolf attack from her battle skill that applies the bleed now also refunds 10 SP after hitting an enemy. Besides the damage gain, the SP recovery is slight quality of life for extended rotations. P2 is standard stats, 20 agility and 7% crit rate. P3, her passive talent that grants her ultimate an additional hit on crit, gains a plus 8% base multiplier increase and more HP restoration. P4 is going to reduce the ultimate cost by about 15%. And then P5, ultimate now deals 1.1 times more damage, and the crit damage boost is increased from 60 to 90%. Overall, Rossi's potentials really scale her ultimate strength from P3 and onwards. P1 provides a little bit of extra damage for her skill and QTE, and then if you want to invest past P3, she is fully investing in that ult. Do note that in this guide video, all showcase footage demonstrates P5 Rossi, as you guys can see here, so you are going to be seeing the strongest version of her ult. Now onto teams. So with the way that Rossi is designed, we basically need two things to get her going. We need one source of Arts Infliction, and then one physical DPS that consumes those vulnerability stacks, because Rossi does not herself. Now there currently does not exist a unit that does both of these simultaneously, so we need two slots for two of these units. For Arts Infliction, we can technically use anything, but we're going to prefer Heat Infliction to synergize with Rossi's dual debuff. Akekuri and Wulfgard are going to be the stable choices here, otherwise we can also use Nature Infliction units like Gilberta. For our physical DPS that consume stacks, we have three. We have Endmin, Dapan, and Pog. Endmin is our free unit of choice, but does require SP to use her battle skill to consume those stacks. This does force longer rotations and much more precise SP management. Dapan is my preferred choice, since his QTE is his major source of damage that consumes stacks, so we don't need to use his battle skill. And his ult also applies vulnerability stacks through lift and knockdown, meaning we can further save SP whenever his ult is up to initiate stack generation for the team's rotation. Pog is a more premium option, focused on massive SP generation through stack consumption. His ult also synergizes quite well with the high stack count from this team. For Pog, his stack consumption is from his battle skill, but because he naturally generates a lot of SP being a vanguard, this is generally not an issue. And finally, for the last slot, right here, it's basically full flex. F2P budget players can add in more of vulnerability stack generators like Chen, or we can add in Gilberta for max susceptibility debuff on ult, or even Perlica for electrification to increase Rossi's heat damage. In this last team comp, you can see here that Gilberta is being chosen as the flex slot. So with all this in mind, these are the most common comps that you can expect her to be in. We have Rossi, and then we have Akekuri or Wulfgard, plus Chen, plus Endmin or Dapan. We can replace Chen with Pog as our stack consumption, and then still add characters like Chen, Endmin, or Dapan for those physical stacks. We can also do something like Rossi plus Gilberta plus Ardelia plus Endmin or Dapan, or we can just do Gilberta plus Wulfgard. And then finally, we can also do Gilberta plus Perlica plus Endmin and Dapan. You'll notice that none of these teams have any sort of dedicated sustain. This is because Rossi's ability to heal herself during her ultimate is more than enough durability combined with dodging. Alright, so now let's run through 3 combat showcases that I prepared for her, demonstrating these teams on this list. Rossi's focus is primarily single target damage, so these demonstrations will be against level 90 Rodan. Again, remember that Rossi is P5, R5, maxed essence, M3 on all skills with 0 artifice gear, so she's at basically 95% strength for whale investment. This is at least 40% stronger than P0R0, so keep that in mind. First up, Rossi plus Akekuri plus Chen plus Endmin. Akekuri is on 4-piece Frontier, Chen is on 4-piece Swordmancer, and Endmin is on Bone Crusher for max battle skill damage. Alright, for this first comp, let's run through a pretty standard rotation here. Alright, so after this initial dodge, we are going to initiate with Akekuri's skill for the heat infliction. Most of the time when you guys are playing this comp, you guys are going to be paying attention to this right here, because we want to make sure that we have both some sort of arts infliction and watching the vulnerability stacks. Then we're going to do a Rossi finisher for SP. Then Rossi's skill for the first vulnerability stack. Then we're going to do a triple QTE here. After the triple QTE, Endmin can do an optional ultimate right after a QTE for that damage. Then this is Rossi's second QTE. We want to hit that yellow ring. Alright, now we can do a Chen optional ult. And then Akekuri QTE on that stagger node. Rossi finisher again for SP. Then we do Rossi's enhanced skill for that bleed. Then we do a double QTE. And then you guys saw at the last second there, we have 4 stacks here. Right before he phases, we do use Endmin's skill to consume the stacks. Right there. It's literally the frame before he swaps. You guys can see the damage up on 95.8k. You'll see these stacks and you'll see the damage chunk on the boss. And then instantly, he phases. Alright, so once he's phased, we have the same setup as before. Gonna Akekuri skill. Then I'm gonna do a Rossi finisher for SP. Then Rossi skill, then triple QTE, then the second QTE, and now we need to wait for SP. So we're gonna do a Rossi finisher for the XP, and then use her enhanced skill for the bleed, and then ult. The finisher, extra SP, enhanced skill, summon the wolves, then Akekuri ult for the buff, then Rossi ult. At the very end, we will use Endmin's skill to consume the stacks, and he'll be dead. Right there. So on paper, this team comp and the setup might look a little bit complicated, but basically, we need 2 battle skills for vulnerability stack and arts infliction, then a Rossi QTE. Then Rossi battle skill for wolf attack, and the rest is history. It's pretty battle skill heavy, so we need to complete those extra finishers on Rossi for the SP to use them all. For max damage, I also like to connect Akekuri ult with Rossi ult, so Ake's link buff is guaranteed for Rossi. Overall, the team rotation needs a bit of practice to get used to, but afterwards, once you got it down, it's pretty easy. You guys notice here, the total damage at the end is about 140k plus 250k in the beginning. And then her final ult hit is going to be 120k plus 340k, all crits. This is about 860k with this team setup at P5 R5. All right, so now for a demo with Dapan. Same gear setups. Dapan is on 4-piece Swordmancer with max arts intensity for crush damage. So in this setup, we can actually lead with Dapan for vulnerability stats without using SP. So first Dapan ult for vulnerability stats without using SP, then Akekuri's skill for heat infliction, and then the QTs as they pop up. Rossi's second QT, right after this, we will see Dapan's QT come up. That means that we know that we have 4 vulnerability stacks. So before we proc that, we need to use Rossi's enhanced skill to apply bleed. Because if we QTE early with Dapan, all the vuln stacks will be consumed. So first we're gonna Chen ult, then Rossi's skill, and then a Dapan QTE. So you see here, we're gonna hold that QT as long as possible. Got the bleed on. There we go. And now we can full send. So from here, we are just waiting for this bar at the bottom left to count for when Rossi's QT is back up. When it is, we're gonna send both of their skills again and then do QTE before he phases. So in this setup, as you guys can see in the boss's tooltip bar, he already has heat infliction and vulnerability stack. So if we're fast enough, we just need to use Akekuri's skill to proc Rossi's QTE, and then after that, we can go all in with ults. Alright, so it's still up. There we go. Rossi's QTE is good. We have 4 stacks here. Remember, make sure to hold this, apply the bleed first. Now we can send. So we use Chen ults first because we don't want Akekuri's buff to be on the wrong person, and then we do Akekuri plus Rossi. So damage is pretty similar here. There might be a little bit of deviations, but overall it's pretty good.
I wouldn't expect anything less.
In this comp, I generally like it a bit more because you guys notice that Dapan's crushability is on QTE, which means that we don't have to use SP for his skill. This means overall through the whole rotation, we save some good SP, making things a bit faster with Endmin because we can skip those finishers instead of delaying our rotation with them. Alright, so now we're going to do a setup with Gilberta. Gilberta is going to be on the Eternal Sheer Knight set. It's going to be getting the max buff here. This is a nuke demo with Gilberta and Wulfgard with Dapan. In this comp, we do take advantage of Wulfgard's forced combustion to give Rossi a 1.5x damage boost on her ultimate's extra attack. Combined with Gilberta's ult, this is probably the strongest setup for Rossi's personal damage. Alright, so in this team, the setup is the same as the previous one. We just replace Akekuri's skill with Wulfgard's skill. You guys will notice the exact same layout. So always get comfortable with using Rossi's battle skill with the wolves to apply bleed before consuming the stats with the Dapan's QD. Probably the one tip I can give you guys. Alright, so her QT is up. We're going to send 2 abilities here and phase him. Okay, so we notice the tooltip here. Tooltip looks like 1 vulnerability stack, no heat infliction. So we're going to lead with Wulfgard. Alright, so right now we have 2 SP bar. I send both Wulfgard's skill and Rossi's skill. When we do Wulfgard's first, we're actually going to enable a nice sequence of stuff to basically speed up the rotation here and apply Rossi's bleed earlier on in the rotation. Right here, do this and then do QTE. Totally fine. And you'll notice this gives us to 4 vulnerability stacks. Now we're going to Wulfgard to apply combustion. Then we're going to Gilberta ult to apply max susceptibility on the 4 vuln stack before we do Dapan. After this, we're good. And Rossi ult. Yeah, it's quick, huh? He's already dead. Did you blink? Might have blinked. But yeah, you guys can see here that because of combustion, look at the damage. Because of the combustion, the extra attack, that 254k crit, matches almost the original. It deals in total, I think, 270 here. And our final strike is going to deal 134k 402. So you guys can see on screen here, this is her full ultimate damage. It's about 1.05 million total damage nuke. Be good. Alright, that's basically it for Rossi. So personal thoughts, I think she is incredibly strong, but has a more difficult playstyle than most characters. She's a lot more SP intensive, and you really have to watch which abilities you're using at what time. Team comp wise though, she has a really good amount of flexibility. She uses units you definitely should have and doesn't need to force super premium teams. She has very little reliance on those ultra premium units like I said, and while they do improve her damage even more, they are definitely not necessary to go crazy. Sustain is also built into her kit because of Seething Blood, which means that her team comp still has a lot of room to improve since every other unit slot can be even stronger. In my opinion, if you enjoy physical comps, she's definitely a no-brainer to pick up, and I can see even in the future the potential for a much stronger physical detonator. But that's gonna wrap it up for this laid-back, comprehensive Rossi guide and showcase. Let me know in the comments what you think of her. Don't forget to like and subscribe for more Enfield content, and thanks for watching. Take care.